Welcome to this explainer on the Foundry by Forge College. The title of our lesson today is Foundations of Data Handling in Solana. So in our previous explainer, we nailed down the final assembly and deliverable for a composable contract system, right? You've built all this beautiful composable logic, but, well, where does the data actually live? Today, we're shifting gears. We're moving from writing smart contracts to understanding the physical, on-chain reality of Solana data storage. It's a crucial part of building dApps on Solana, especially in our data handling track.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our engineering blueprint for today. We'll trace the Solana data pipeline, use a highly scientific metaphor involving boxes and cashiers, tear down the anatomy of a single account, weigh storage patterns, walk through practical design steps, and finally, look at packing those boxes with a tool called Borsh. Section 1. The Solana data pipeline. Explicit data flow. Now, if you really want to understand Solana, you absolutely have to understand its fundamental constraint, which is the explicit account-centric pipeline. I mean, think about it. You've built these elegant composable contracts, you're writing complex logic, but where does the data actually live? Well, Solana's state is modified through atomic transactions. That literally means either everything works perfectly or the whole shebang fails and absolutely nothing changes. And all of this happens by moving data through an explicit pipeline where you have to declare every single piece of data you're going to touch before you even start. No surprises allowed.
Section 2. Boxes and librarians, the mental model.
Let's make these abstract database concepts a bit more visual, kind of like a giant puzzle. In our mental model, a Solana account is not your traditional database row. Not at all. It is a labeled, sealed box holding raw binary contents. And slapped right on the front of that box is a strict sign dictating exactly which program is allowed to open it. Think of these accounts as boxes sitting on a checkout conveyor belt at your local grocery store.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the whole network achieves its massive speed. When you send a transaction, you're basically placing a basket of these sealed boxes on the checkout belt. The cashier, which is the strict Solana runtime, checks your instruction sheet and immediately locks the boxes you need up front. There's zero cutting in line. Then, the librarians, these are your programs, are allowed to come in and actually interpret or change the bytes inside. Because the strict cashier locks the boxes up front, Solana can process thousands of other baskets simultaneously, as long as they are disjoint, meaning they just can't need the exact same boxes. It's pure parallel throughput.
Section 3. Anatomy of an account. Dissecting the box. Let's zoom in and look at the engineering specs of a single one of these boxes. First, you have the address, which is the public key. Then, the owner. This is the program that holds the ultimate security lock against arbitrary writes, because only the owner can modify the data. Then you have lamports. Think of lamports as the physical rent money required just to keep your box sitting on the shelf. You've also got the data itself, which is just opaque bytes. And finally, an executable flag, strictly separating code from data. Ownership is absolutely crucial here. It prevents any other program from just wandering over and scrambling your box's contents.
Section 4. Storage patterns, throughput versus overhead.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we arrange these boxes on the shelves. Exploring these architectural choices is a huge part of our Forge College learning tracks, because it brings us to the ultimate Solana trade-off. Look, you can either use an aggregator account, which is basically one giant box. It's super cheap on rent, but every single transaction has to wait in line to use it, causing high lock contention. Or on the flip side, you can use per-entity accounts. This means everyone gets their own little box, you get massive parallel speeds, nobody waits in line, but your overall rent costs for storing all those separate boxes definitely go up. So it's throughput versus overhead.
To manage all these boxes efficiently, we use PDAs, or program-derived addresses. Think of PDAs as these clever, deterministic labels we print for our boxes based on mathematical formulas. They're a real game changer because they allow us to predictably find any box at any time without needing to maintain a massive, slow, centralized index.
And here is a very, very important number for your engineering blueprint. 0. Yep, 0. That is exactly the amount of flexibility you have once an account size is allocated. Because account sizing is fixed the moment you create it on Solana, upfront capacity planning is absolutely non-negotiable. If you buy a small box, you can't magically stretch it later when you decide to buy more groceries. You have to plan ahead for sure.
Section 5. Practical design steps, the assembly line.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the actual assembly line workflow that you'll repeat for every new dApp feature.
Step 1, define your schema. You need to know exactly what data you have. Step 2, choose your layout. Are you doing one big aggregator box or many small per entity boxes? Step 3, size and allocate. And hey, remember our zero flexibility rule? Step 4, implement serialization to pack it all in tightly. And Step 5, design your read and update patterns so you aren't constantly rewriting a massive box just to change a single, tiny Boolean flag.
Section 6. Packing with Borsh. Serialization standard.
Which brings us to Step 4 in detail. We need an efficient tool to literally stuff our raw data into these fixed-size boxes. Meet Borsh. It's the ecosystem standard for Solana. It's a deterministic, compact, binary layout format. So why do we love it? Well, because it completely avoids ambiguous field separators and unnecessary metadata. It strips out all the fluff and just packs your data tightly and predictably.
So the crucial point is this. Borsh acts as the strict, unbreakable contract between your off-chain client and your on-chain program. It uses predictable length encoding, drops bloated field names entirely in favor of lean, little-endian integers, and gives you an incredibly compact representation. No confusion, no wasted space. It practically guarantees that when your client sends data, your program reads those exact same byte lengths perfectly.
Section 7. Conclusion. Key takeaways.
All right, let's wrap up our blueprint reading session. If you remember nothing else from this explainer, remember these 3 architectural maxims. 1. Accounts are your absolute single source of truth. 2. Design for concurrency by using disjoint writable sets so the cashier doesn't have to slow down. And 3. Commit to deterministic binary serialization, like Borsh, to guarantee everyone agrees on what the bytes actually mean. If you keep these principles in mind, you are fully prepared for the heavy lifting in our next module.
I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Which specific data entity from your application will you prep for our Borsh serialization deep dive? Think about it, sketch it out, and apply what you've learned today. To expand your Web3 mastery and check out more resources on this and other topics, make sure to visit forge.college. I'm so glad we got to break this down today, and I'll catch you in the next one.